Here we are with another edition of Anchors Away, opportunity for some of our news anchors to kind of get away from the traditional setting of a newscast and kind of open up about some of the things that we're talking about here, perhaps some of the things you guys are talking about where you are. And there is no shortage of things to talk about. We're kind of trying to keep it in the lane, so to speak, as we begin this, not really an experiment, but it's a digital broadcast that we'll be putting on our website, hopefully with some regularity. This is our second one. So let's get started. Mallory Brooks joining us now, and Keith Monahan, Chief Meteorologist. Guys, good to have you. You noticed that Ashley Ketz is not here.
No.
She's apparently on assignment. I'm try to catch up with her in a minute, but she's out working on a story. I think she's in somewhere in North Arkansas.
Mountain View.
Oh, she was Stone County, Izard County. She was all up in North Central Arkansas.
But we'll try and catch up with her in a minute. But guys, thanks again for joining us. And we were kind of tossing this around. The Emmys aired on NBC last night, and I think a lot of people are watching because they wanted to see how political they would be, how political they wouldn't be. I caught some of the red carpet, or as they call it, the gold carpet interviews. That seemed to get real political, guys, and that's one of the things that we talk about, you know, with entertainers, even with news anchors. We're kind of in a collective where just do your job. And we understand that everyone has their beliefs and their leanings one way or the other, but don't share those. Share your talents with us. Agree?
I agree. I'm not afraid to go into that deep water. I mean, you know, really, these millionaires, they just have no idea how the rest of us live.
I mean, they live in a different world.
And why it'd be like me making my opinion better than yours, Bob, or more important than yours. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, but you don't have to force it down people's throats in a setting that's not appropriate.
Right.
That setting is supposed to be celebrating the talent that these folks bring to the big or the little screens, I guess. I don't know what they call it, the TV screens. You know, just do that.
It's interesting too because they made note of this last night too. I'm not sure how much you guys watched, but when they opened up the MCs and said, you know, we want to thank everyone who's in the room and the hundreds of people who are watching at home. Because they know that's kind of, I think they're kind of getting the message that, you know, the people that are out there in what's considered flyover country, they're not getting it. They don't like that. That's not what they want to see.
But it's not stopping. It's not stopping, I guess, what they do. But you know what I think about all the time? Remember, I call it the good old days, when it was considered rude, not polite to ask someone about politics or who they voted for. You know, you talk to your neighbors regardless of what your neighbors believed. You loved your neighbors. You hung out with them, and you just you didn't ask.
It was one of those things. You don't discuss politics and religion.
And everybody got along a whole lot
I remember
better
that,
than
and
they
this
do
goes
now.
back to, and Keith, this is kind of our era, because this goes back to the early 70s. I was in second grade, and I went to school, and this is when Nixon was running. So if you want to talk about a hot political era, that certainly was it. And I asked her, you know, who did you vote for? And she said, Bobby, you don't ask people, you know. And I thought that was kind of strange. And I went home and told my parents. I said, you know, I asked the teacher who she voted for, and she wouldn't tell me. They're like, oh, yeah, well, no, you shouldn't ask. You know, you can ask us. We're your parents, but you don't ask anyone else.
Can we go back to those days?
I don't know. That's you know, you'd like to, but I think it's one of those things that the more these award shows do, you know, have folks up there espousing their political views and preaching to folks at home, I think the more they're actually getting it now. That's not what the viewing audience wants to be. And when it comes down to the bottom line, they want viewership.
But are they getting it?
You know, and that's why the gold carpet was full of a lot of political talk. You know, then once inside it got toned down, I don't even think Trump's name was mentioned during the actual telecast.
Yeah, but I think they said something about.
There certainly was a lot of.
There was something about religion said.
Yeah.
As I understand, and that's taboo too. I mean, religion and politics are personal things, and this infected social media as well. You know.
Well, social media's brought it all to a whole new.
Well, yeah, I mean, people that shouldn't have an opinion suddenly have one. You know, and then they try to force everybody else to get to accept that opinion. But that's why it's called an opinion, because everybody has their own beliefs and their own ideologies. And it's like you see it with media, more so on a national scale. You should not know, and actually I'm going to go down to Ouachita Baptist University. My daughter just started college there, and I'm going to talk to the communications class. And one of the things I'm going to talk about is nobody should know what your political stance is if you're on TV. Nobody should know that. And that goes for Twitter and all the social medias. You are expected to be a fair and balanced person that sees all sides, and you just report the news. We heard fake news a lot.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen in the smaller markets, but certainly does happen on the larger scale nationally. No one should know what your beliefs are.
Interesting point. There was a movie, I'm not sure if you've seen it, called Broadcast News. Came out in the late 80s. And there's a part in that movie when William Hurt played the anchor, and there was a crisis, whatever it was, and he was on the air, and the thing kind of wrapped up, whatever it was they were covering, had to do with military jets being shot down. And at the end of that particular news break, or that special report, he said, in other words, I think we're okay. And the news director in the control room said, who the heck cares what you think? Which stopped me. And I'm like, that's the point. Because exactly, what we think and care, that's not our job to put that out there. What we know, what we learn in the news of the day, that's what we're supposed to do.
We're supposed to report the facts,
yeah.
Not opinions. And if we do, Jesse has Capitol View, that's the venue for that, where she brings in people from both sides to discuss an issue.
Healthy debate.
Yes.
Healthy debate, and that's the way it should be. But just reporting news, it should not be made political. It's, like I said, it should be, like you said, you're vanilla.
Which is,
I mean, you're supposed to be middle of the road and report all sides fairly.
Don't want to make anybody upset. I want everyone to be happy.
And Mallory, you have an interesting take on this too, because your dad was political.
Oh, yes.
Lou Harden.
Yes, he grew up in politics.
I know growing up around that, you must have heard this discussion a lot.
Yeah, I grew up on the campaign trail. It was so different then. Politics was very different back in that day. So it is very interesting. But one of the things that made me so interested in becoming a reporter and later a news anchor was watching reporters cover
your dad.
Campaign parties and stories, and to see how important it is to get facts right and not try to skew anything. And I think we all learn going into the business, it is essential. That is our job, is to just tell you, here's how it is. And right now, I know media as a whole, we are really fighting people trusting us. And I hate that so much, because it's so important. People see NBC. We are the NBC affiliate. They associate us with NBC network and whatever way they think the network leans, and that's not the case. We are all Arkansans here. Yeah, we all are, all the reporters in the newsroom right now have all gone out to towns, and they want to tell the stories, and they want to get the facts right, and none of them, I think people imagine, we're at a desk like, well, how can we make them think this? How can we spin this story?
And
that's not the case.
We don't get talking points from the network.
No, we're not associated.
I do want to interject an important thing. Our job is to report the news, not become the news.
Yes.
Exactly.
And I think, here at Channel 4, that's the case. And like I said, we are an NBC because of programming, but I think, our team of anchors and reporters is right down the line, doing their job, doing what they're supposed to do, and not falling into that trap.
Exactly.
Of espousing opinions or trying to turn a story either direction. And that's what makes me proud of our folks here at the station.
Could not be more proud of the folks that work here, because they all are like that. It's about what they're covering. It's not about the folks that are covering it. And that's what, that makes me so proud to be an anchor for our news team, and even for the folks behind the scenes and everyone else involved. And
we all have families. We all care so much about the people in the state. It hurts our heart, whenever we're reading these stories and reporting these stories. There are neighbors. When we hear of things happening to children here, it breaks our hearts, and I want people to know how much we care, and I'll tell you, and we want everyone to trust us. You get this now too. On a personal note, when you're in the news business and you're doing stories about kids, it's one thing to be single or to be married without children and report on kids like that. Then when you have children, and then you're reporting on stories that involve children, boy, it brings a whole, you're trying to tamp down that emotion, some things you'd like to say about someone who's accused or someone found guilty of something, but it's a whole other level, It's a whole nother level. See, look, you guys are even just, you guys want to say all you want, right?
You start thinking.
You're just kind of holding it back real quick. Hang on a second. I'm going to see if I can call Ashley and see if she's anywhere. Oh, sweet Ashley. I want to hear from her. She's not driving, just so you know. She's a passenger in the car on our special report with a photographer. I'm not sure if they can hear that. We'll see if She's probably like actually at the gym or something. So
she's probably out of lunch.
She doesn't even take my calls. She's like, you know.
Oh,
see?
Ashley, she's probably in the middle of an interview.
Saying, we got to start this over because my phone's ringing because Bob's calling me.
She's probably having a latte and she's in the parking lot. Right?
Oh, stop that. Yep, stop that.
Okay, well, yeah, we don't want
to. She's from Arkansas, 501. That's all you get.
I want her to talk a bit about the story she's working on because it's a pretty heavy story that she's working on. Special report up in Baxter County, I think, is one place she was going. But some really interesting things. But Keith, you're dressed the way you are because you travel around a lot, you know, which is great. You like to get out to county fairs and do a lot of things, and that's kind of neat. When we talk about our neighbors and covering people, you get a lot of great feedback from folks.
You know, folks like to see us come out and not show up for a terrible incident that's happened in their county.
Yes.
And that's why I really enjoy going out to the county fairs because you can't get more hometown than that. You know, to see the kids out there with all their entries, their animal entries, you know, all the jams and the jellies and the quilts. My goal is, before I retire from this job, is
to make an award-winning jam.
Is to make an award-winning jam. No, it's to go to every single county fair in our market. That'd be 45 counties, and I'm well on the way. I'm about 8 or 10 counties away from finishing. Now, I'll stay a little bit longer if I knock those out. That doesn't mean I have to retire.
You know, because hey, another county may come into our viewing area.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's so important because, you know, I've been out west to Mena to the Polk County Fair, and those folks were so excited. Hey, Mena, how you doing?
Yeah. There you go.
Because they said, well, you only show up here if there's a natural disaster or if there's a big crime. But you've got to go and meet the folks and interact with the folks, and that's the way you keep connected with Arkansas.
Well, and that's what you do too, and a lot of people don't. You're not the guy who sits in the car, you wait for the camera guys to set everything up, and then you jump out, do your live shot, and then leave. You know, you're there, you know, well ahead of time, talking to the people, what's going on here, what's happening here, and then you get the kids involved.
I'm grabbing chickens, I'm milking goats.
He literally had a chicken last week. What county fair were you at last week?
That was Ouachita County Fair down in Camden.
Fair. He was holding right there.
And that's what that's really the good feedback you get. And sometimes that's a lot of times too when we hear from people saying, you know, I don't watch your network because I don't care about it. And that's when you kind of sit there and you go, look, that's not us. You know, who we are is, and then, you know, this is who we are, this is why we do what we do. And then you generally walk away from that person, they've got a completely different impression.
Yeah, the other important thing we do besides the county fairs, you know, we do the weather radio programming events. We do 6 of them a year, right before severe weather season. Make sure people's weather radios are programmed properly. If they don't have one, they can come and pick one up. That'll start in February, early March. And then, and for instance, today, which I don't know when this is going to air, but Tuesday we're headed down to the Benton Event Center for the Saline County Emergency Management Preparedness Fair. So we get out there and kind of, you know, that's kind of the thing I like to do, get out there into the community, talk to the people, and also promote things that'll enhance your safety.
Which is part of your job.
Yes.
Right, exactly.
As a meteorologist.
I mean, we hope we don't have to ever use those suggestions that we give you, but just in case we do have a severe weather event that threatens people, we want folks to know exactly what to do. And that's another reason to get out in the community, to kind of spread that word.
Excellent. Anything else you guys got on your mind? How's the 4 o'clock newscast going?
4 o'clock's going well. I'm going to miss you today. He's going to be out live.
Yeah.
So
you know,
you'll be doing the weather live.
I'll be doing the weather live. And I'll tell you what, we don't walk in here at 5 minutes before the newscast starts. That's kind of a misconception.
You don't?
No, I mean, I'm usually in here at 1:30.
Some people say, what do you work from, like 5 to 10?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Wouldn't that be nice?
I mean, you know, I'm making my forecast, you're prepping scripts, you're doing stories, reporters are out there doing the stories. It's not like we walk in here just before. There's a lot of lead that goes up into the newscast. You may only see me for 9-12 minutes a day.
There's a lot of work and a lot of people involved in those 30 minutes.
You know, it's always fun to tell people producing a newscast, going into a newscast, every second. I mean, if the producer needs 10 extra seconds, they'll have to go to weather and say, can I borrow your 10 seconds?
And I'll usually say, no, I've got something to talk about. Exactly. No, our producers are great, the folks behind the scenes.
I should have had this, I don't know if they can pull up the newsroom camera or not, but there's a room full of people behind us, you know, who are
there it is.
Well, there's a couple of them. At least I think there's a big meeting going on.
We have our editorial meeting every day.
So that's where they are, and actually
if you could look there, they're all in the meeting right now.
They're all in the meeting right now. There's Mark Mosley, our executive producer, and they're going through, there's Hillary Hunt, and they're all putting things together or going over some of the the news ideas of the day, and they'll be hashing that out. And of course, a lot of those desks are empty because that's where reporters sit. If they're not in the meeting, they're out covering stories.
Yes.
Exactly.
Isn't
So,
that cool?
not to mention the production crew too, because in that room
Oh,
that
my
if you
goodness.
take the wide shot behind me, that's generally full of people
Yeah.
working on this.
There they are.
See, and then beyond that, there's master control, there's engineering, so that's kind of a, you know, a whole host of folks.
We're just a
that get
small
ready to-
percentage of the people that work at the station.
That's right.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
the people, I mean, the people behind the scenes are so wonderful. I can't tell you how much they make us laugh when we need it, and they are always churning and working. I want to see the control room one more time. Can we see them?
They keep us
There they are.
There
Okay.
they are. If you could see this board of buttons, that's Tim, who's wonderful. The board of buttons that he has terrifies me. If I see it, my heart starts pounding. They're very talented.
I have never been able to figure out how they keep track of all that.
I have no
all that
idea.
stuff.
It's
Anyway.
magic.
But well, that's
This was
a
fun.
you know, broadcasting TV station 101 right there. Well, guys, thanks very much for your time. We'll try and get Ashley live next time we do this. So certainly thanks for joining us. Let us know what you think about it. We've said it before. We'd like to hear your constructive criticism or your constructive ideas, some of the topics that you'd like to have us discuss, or even interesting guests you might think that we could have on here. That might get a little out of control, but that's what this is for.
Hey.
So.
This is just an organic conversation,
That's
Bob.
exactly what this
we're just
is.
talking about topics of the day, and we're kind of letting you see beyond our anchor man outfits
We're kind of
and
trying
anchor
to open
lady
up
outfits.
that, you know, peel back the onion just a little bit.
Peel it back.
Guys, thanks very much, and thanks for watching. Until next time, Anchors Away.